Welcome back, everyone, into this chapter 4 of Module 3, where we're going to talk about interfaces. Interfaces are nothing but the way your robot or your device is communicating with the rest of the world, and it's communicating with the other controllers as well. Now, we already talked about how sensors can be attached to a controller and how sensors effectively send data, but we haven't talked about how you can make sure that the controllers talk to other controllers and make sure that you have a collective data as well at the same time. This is only possible with the help of something known as a interface. Okay, and we are going to see multiple or different kinds of interface that are going to be helpful for us and that are going to make our lives very easy. Yeah, so we just move ahead, and then we have the definition of it. Interfacing multiple systems refer to the process of connecting different components and subsystems together to create multiple complete robotic system. So as we talked about earlier as well, we're going to have multiple interfaces just because we want to make a robotic system which is going to be powerful enough. And that's only possible if you have multiple systems that can work together really well. Interfacing multiple systems involves selecting the appropriate communication protocols and hardware interfaces to ensure that components can communicate well and with each other effectively. There are several types of interfaces. Interfacing multiple systems in robotics use including serial communication, very important, very powerful. You use USB as a serial port to communicate with each other. You use serial communication is used for sensors, actuators, and robot microcontrollers, as we talked about earlier. Then you have Ethernet, God tier. Okay, God tier port. Okay, Ethernet is one of the most, or I think the most powerful port ever built. Okay, you can communicate anything in this world at this point with Ethernet. Okay, if that thing has an Ethernet port, you can communicate with that and send data back and forth very easily for sure. Ethernet is commonly used for robotics, connecting multiple robots together in a swarm or connect a robot in a large network. Then you have wireless communication. Now, wireless is a very vague word, so it means Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, anything you talk about which is wireless. It can also include micro signals as well. Microwave signals, and that's also part of it. So, wireless communications involve transmitting data over wireless connections such as Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Wireless communication is commonly used in robotics to connect the robot to a remote controller or to transmit sensor data to a central computer. Okay, technically speaking, what we do is we essentially have a controller which is having a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth and it talks with other devices, and it's very effective. Interfacing multiple robots is important in robotics because it enables the robot to perform the task that will be impossible with a single component or a subsystem. If you have a single component or subsystem, then it's just terribly slow. So we effectively use these things which are much more important and easier to interface. Interfacing multiple systems allow the robot to leverage the capabilities of multiple sensors, actuators, and controllers to achieve more complex and sophisticated behavior. Then you have some examples of interfacing multiple sensor system used in robotics include serial communication between microcontroller and multiple sensors and actuators. Now, serial communication is used when you have a microcontroller like an Arduino, okay, and you want to communicate multiple sensors or actuators together, okay. That's where you use serial communication. Ethernet, already we talked about. Wireless, we talked about. In conclusion, okay, you can use all of these systems or subsystems to allow for multiple or effective robots to talk to each other. Now, this is relatively a smaller PPT, but I have a lot to talk about on the camera. Now, we talked about different communication protocols. One of the most important thing is that any of these robotic systems that you see in the market are not limited by one single type of communication, okay? Usually, when you're building an effective robot, you need multiple communication systems to work together, okay? And then only it's possible. I'll tell you another example. Let's take the example of our favorite cell phones or mobile phones or iPhones, okay? Whenever you talk about an iPhone, essentially speaking, you have a Wi-Fi inside, okay? You have Bluetooth inside. You also actually have microwave signals inside, which are ones that you use when you're calling. Now, all of these systems work independently, okay? And one of the most important thing that you might have seen in an iPhone is this, I'll tell you, okay? So I'm not sure how many of you know this, but it's a very important fact that on an iPhone, okay, or any metal phone which is there, you have these bands, okay? You see this band on the start. Yeah, on the start, this small band. Okay, these bands are nothing but the Wi-Fi, the antennas for all these network protocols which are happening. Okay, so these small cuts allow for a metal body phone to talk to the world. Otherwise, it would have been impossible since it's a metal cage. Okay, and we all know that any signal which is broadcasting out from the metal cage won't really leave the phone. Okay, so the only way that's possible is through these plastic cutouts. They help you to communicate it through the outer world or with the outer world with the effectiveness of its strength. Okay, and if these are not there, then probably the system won't work as well. Quite kind of funny actually, like looking at an iPhone, with having small antennas. But yeah, that's what makes this even possible. And even if you see that on the back as well, we don't have any space for any antenna, and this is all glass and metal. And it's impossible to go out of the metal body antennas. So they have these small effective sensors or small effective antennas which allow you to do that. And luckily, I'll show you something very interesting. So I think this was one of the first iPhones with 5G capability, and some of the iPhones have this in India now. But um, if you see this band, okay, this circular which is there, okay, on the side, this is not a SIM card tray, it's a 5G network antenna. Okay, this is quite big. Okay, so that's why when 5G was launched in the US, I was lucky enough to be there and got this phone. And since I was working with Verizon was one of the first providers who was selling this network plans as well. So luckily, this has the 5G capabilities. Now I'm very sure every phone has 5G capabilities, but just this one is like super reliable. So yeah, coming back to the robotics, when we say that you are talking about network antennas, okay, this is one of the things which is important, is that you know which network antenna are you working on. Okay, but I think that would be all for this video. I hope you understood what network antennas or interfaces are. In the next upcoming video, we're gonna wrap this up model, and then we'll move over to the fourth model where we're gonna have a lot of hardware fun. But yeah, I hope you are having fun so far, and I'll see you all in the next one. Till then, happy learning. Peace.